We're actually broadcasting from the UK, and it's very early morning for us. So we're on our first coffee. Our today's webinar is dedicated to bill automation as outlined by Xero's Cash Flow App Advisory Playbook. At the webinar, we will be taking a deeper dive into the functional capabilities of a bill automation app stack and the benefits they bring. Please note that the session is being recorded. It will be available for download within a couple of days. We would like to encourage you to ask questions from the start. Please don't hesitate to raise your hand, and anytime during the presentation to ask a question, click on the Q&A box in the bottom menu in Zoom. So let me introduce our today's presenters. Thank you. So my name is Maria Kozlova. I'm head of marketing at ApprovalMax, and I'm very happy to be your host today. We also have Konstantin Bredyuk with us. Hello, Konstantin.
Yes, hello, everyone.
Konstantin is Director of Product at ApprovalMax, and he will be leading the technology overview for us. With roots in business process management, software development, and implementation, Konstantin has undertaken hundreds of product setups of ApprovalMax for clients worldwide. We also have Helmut Heppner with us. Hello, Helmut.
Hello, everyone. Good evening.
Helmut is Director of Operations at ApprovalMax, and he is helping us with the Q&A session. So moving on to the agenda. Our today's webinar will have three main parts. First, we will take a closer look at data and bill automation, and we'll make a specific focus on ensuring data quality and process optimization through a Xero-based data automation app stack. Secondly, and as the main part, we will have Konstantin walk us through the purchase to bill automation process and the integration scenarios with data capture and digitization solutions. Finally, we will walk through the general templates of an efficient approval workflow setup, as well as we'll take a look at common patterns of approval matrix configuration. That's the latest from ApprovalMax's implementation experience. And finally, at the end, we will have a dedicated Q&A session for you. So let's take a closer look at data and bill automation. In doing that, as I mentioned earlier, we are referencing Xero's Cash Flow App Advisory Playbook, the latest one in Xero's series of app advisory playbooks. So particular, this one provides a set of recommendations of how to use Xero and the integrated apps to address the cash flow management challenges, how to proceed with cash flow advisory, and make the right software selection choices. So let me very quickly hand it over to Helmut for a quick poll. Helmut?
Yes, hello. So we have prepared two polls for you just to get some feedback. And the first question we have is, have you heard about this cash flow app advisory playbook recently issued by Xero, and had you had a chance to read it? So if you could please let us know what is the status quo and how familiar you are with this playbook. Oh, I see the votes coming in. That's interesting. Let's give it another few seconds. Please let us know if you are familiar with the playbook, yes or no. Okay, everyone has voted. Let me share the results. And here it is. It is for me a little bit, oops, sorry, once again. So here are the results. Interestingly, the majority of our attendees today have not read yet the playbook. So a strong advice would be going to the Xero website and looking for this playbook. It is really, really a good and great piece of assets, which will provide a good overview about how to automate processes and which connected apps are helping to be more efficient. Thank you for taking part in this poll. Back to Maria.
Helmut, thank you very much, and thank you to everyone for voting. So let's move on and actually take a look at proceed with the cash flow management theme. So cash flow is the lifeline of any organization, and there are three areas, key areas when it comes to cash flow app advisory as per Xero. One is improving efficiency, then there is cash flow insights, and finally there is cash flow action plan. The focus of this particular webinar is the efficiency improvement area, which includes data and bill automation objectives. So what are the main efficiency challengers then? And as a no-brainer, so manual interventions, paper and email clutter come first. Then there is poor data quality, for example, incorrect or incomplete coding, which oftentimes occurs when business review comes too late for accounting documents and there is no time to remember what the expense was about, what the purchase was about, and it is coded as general expense, and then which overall degrades the data quality. Then there is unclear or incorrect workflows and task handovers, and this is common to not just to accounting but pretty much to any department, and the way to tackle it is to implement workflow solutions and automation solutions. So then lack of a seamless end-to-end process flow, and this is pretty much about disconnected activities, people working in their disconnected systems, which prevents an end-to-end seamless transition of data and handovers. So finally, poor decision traceability, which is pretty much, which is very crucial for audits, for example, when there is no ability to trace back the authorization decision and figure out the details as to who authorized the document, when it was authorized, and any details of the kind. So natively, the solution to that would be to embrace the right technology, and let's take a look at the ways to do that. Yep, thank you. Kostya, you had anything to say?
No, you go.
Great, okay, thank you. So, okay, so improving efficiency, we're looking at two ways to do that. One way, and with the ultimate goal of eradicating inefficiencies resulting from manual intervention and paper-based processes. First thing that can be done is data digitization, which implies digital data capture and cloud data storage and accounting, as we can see on our screens. And as a more advanced approach, what you can do is data automation, which is pretty much a combination of digital data capture, cloud data storage, with workflow-driven data validation and decision control. So to put it in other words, what you do, you ensure that your accounting and finance documents and all of the accounting data are complete, verified by both business and accounting, and are audit ready. So a native way to do that is to implement a data automation app stack, and let's take a look at it on our next slide. Thank you. So three main components, as we can see it here, to the data automation app stack. There is the core of the app stack is Xero as the anchor cloud accounting platform that provides digital data storage and accounting functionality. Then there are OCR tools. There are other ways to provide digital data capture, and we can see HubDoc. We can pretty much HubDoc here, and Xero would for more precision also have to be there. And finally, digital data validation, which is purchase order automation and bill automation provided by ApprovalMax. So let me hand it over to Konstantin for now for the technology part overview. Konstantin?
Thanks a lot, Maria. And my part will be mainly focused on talking about bill end-to-end automation, right? And we believe that the core of improving this end-to-end bill automation is actually understanding what are the components of this end-to-end bill automation workflow. And we see that there are on a high level three components. The first one is purchasing, the second one is bill, and the third one is payment. In other words, first of all, we are initiating the purchase. So someone in the organization is buying something, right? Then you are getting a bill, receiving a bill. You need to add it into the accounting system and validate it. And finally, it comes to the payment, which is a separate process as compared to the bill authorization process, actually. Basically, you select those bills that you would like to pay, you authorize the payment, and you make the payment. So this is the blueprint, the way how we see this end-to-end bill automation workflow. There are lots of details, and that's what we're going to do now. We will dig into these three components, see how this works, and what are the ways to implement actually these different parts of the end-to-end bill automation process. We are starting with purchase. First of all, someone needs to initiate the purchase. It could be an online purchase where an employee of the organization just goes to the website and buys something. It could be an employee going to the store and buying something there in the store, or it could be actually a purchase order thing. Besides initiation, there is always an authorization part. If an employee is not asking someone else's approval, it basically means that this person is authorizing their own purchase, right? Authorization could be done also in different ways. This person can just go to the manager and say, well, should we buy the stuff? And manager can say, yeah, that's okay. Without any email, without any formal approval. That's how it could be working. A little bit more formal way to authorize the purchase is to use an email authorization. So an employee who needs to purchase something, they send an email, they get an authorization by the email. And well, in this case, we have already some kind of an audit log, which is not bad at all. But once the number of purchases is growing in the organization, of course, using an email becomes less and less efficient because lots of emails are flying around in the organization and managers are overwhelmed with all these emails. And then it comes to the point where you likely need some kind of a formal approval workflow. The system that defines who should be authorizing different types of purchases based on amount, based on supplier, and such things. And finally, we have execution part where the order is actually placed. Also could be happening in very different ways. It could be an order placed using the phone. It could be an order placed by the email. It could be an order placed in the store online, or it could be a formal purchase order delivered to the supplier. And yeah, many companies are starting with informal ways to communicate their purchase order, purchase decision. But actually, as the company is growing, it is becoming more and more crucial to have formal agreements with different suppliers, have them stated in the purchase order itself, and make sure that supplier is getting all the information together with the purchase order. What are the terms, what exactly we are ordering, and such. That is a very important part. Let us now take a look at how to implement this purchase part. There are different ways. First of all, it is an ad hoc solution. It is very affordable. It is easy to start with. And well, by ad hoc solution, I mean just using emails, using paper-based purchase orders. That is what you can start using right away, right? All the employees, when they are on board, they have an email box, most likely, right? They can just open the mailbox, their email client, send an email saying, let's purchase something, get an approval, and that's it, right? That is okay for smaller organizations. But once the number of employees, once the number of purchases is growing, it is becoming not that efficient and not that transparent of what is basically happening. We have specialized procurement software like Coupa, like Ariba, like the Hara. These are really powerful tools that allow to perfectly structure the procurement process. The drawback here is that, well, it will take some time to implement the solution. They are not as affordable as email, let me put it this way. And oftentimes this means that you will need to have a purchasing department. So we will need to have a team, or at least one person who will be in charge of purchasing, and then all these inquiries will be going to this person, right? But it could scale, it could allow to scale organization to a pretty significant size. And the third option is to use some native functions of the accounting system and maybe some additions to the accounting system like ApprovalMax actually. So in Xero, as you know, there is a purchase order function, which is pretty good. It allows you to create the purchase order using all the data that you have in the system, like suppliers, GL costs, taxes, etc. In this sense, it's brilliant. You create the purchase order, you can actually send it to the supplier, you can configure the template of how this order is being created in Xero. It looks very well. But there are some drawbacks here. Basically, you need to give access to Xero to lots of employees in the organization who need to purchase something. And that's where comes ApprovalMax. ApprovalMax basically allows to organize the purchasing in a simple way, meaning that you don't need to have a procurement department, you don't need to spend a fortune on the implementation. You just basically raise purchase orders in a pretty much same way as you do in Xero, but it is done outside of the accounting software. And each purchase order is authorized before it is actually being sent to the supplier. So these three options we have for purchasing. What are the best practices that we see here? We see that, well, first of all, this purchasing part should be taken, of course, outside of the accounting software. It is not a good practice to have 20 guys in Xero who would be creating purchase orders, right? Because they start seeing some information and they see purchase orders of each other, so that's not quite good. So what we see as best practices is that, first of all, this purchasing part is taken out of the accounting system, and then requesters should have certain restrictions, certain rights, what they should be able to do. And the first thing that comes to the mind is that requesters should not be able to create new suppliers. Supplier creation, supplier onboarding should be a completely separate process. When you want to start dealing with some new supplier, you need to agree on certain terms. You need to double check that it is a trustworthy supplier and such. So we see as a best practice that requesters of purchases, they do not have an ability to create new suppliers together with raising a purchase order. They can go through another process, request a new supplier to be onboarded, and then raise a purchase order with the supplier. That's perfectly okay. Then we see that it is a pretty good idea to help requesters a little bit with accounting part. Requesters, they do not oftentimes know which account they should select, or especially which tax they should select. And that is a good idea to have certain restrictions, which on the one hand will be preventing from obvious errors, and on the other hand, just helping requesters to create purchase orders without going deep into this accounting details. And finally, a good idea is to have the purchase order being automatically sent to the supplier. First of all, it is helpful because the requester does not need to spend additional time on sending the purchase order. On the other hand, it means that there is no ability to interfere and modify somehow the purchase order before it is actually sent. That leads us to the topic of fraud prevention and fraud detection. We didn't mention it before as one of the core things, but actually it is one of the goals that organizations are typically trying to achieve when they are setting up end-to-end bill automation. It is not just about convenience and saving time, it is also about preventing fraud, actually. Well, these are the best practices, and I didn't go through all of them. We will share the presentation with you, and you're very welcome to take a look at the remaining ones. Let me switch to another interesting slide. This one illustrates how actually users of ApprovalMax, organizations that implement ApprovalMax, are setting up approval workflows for purchase orders. And this is a result of our recent customer survey that we have done. And so these stats are just hot from the oven. We have just prepared this information. So the most popular way to configure the purchase or authorization workflow is to use amount criteria. If purchase order exceeds 4,000, for example, or 5,000 or 15,000, completely depends on the rules, then it should go to a particular manager. That is by far the most popular way to organize the workflow. Then we also have routing based on the requester, based on who has raised the purchase order. And that is actually a logical thing because, well, oftentimes purchase orders are authorized based on the organizational structure. Say there is a person in the marketing department who needs to purchase something. Who would be the first person to authorize this purchase order? Well, very likely head of marketing department, right? That is what 50% of all the organizations that use ApprovalMax for purchase orders are setting up, routing based on the requester. By the way, as you see, the total amount, total sum of all these percentages exceeds 100, which basically means that lots of organizations that use ApprovalMax, they use more than one criteria to configure the workflow, not just by amount or not just by the requester, but they use a combination, amount and requester. For example, if purchase order is requested by Mark and if it exceeds 3,000, should go to head of marketing for approval. If it is requested by Mark, but it is below 5,000, then it should go to another manager for authorization. That is quite a typical workflow that we see being configured in ApprovalMax. Let's move forward. So that was the part about purchases, and we're now switching to the part about bills. That is the second part, the second topic that we need to cover today. There will be the third one. So at this point, let me encourage you to ask questions. I guess there might be some. So you're very well welcome to click on this Q&A button in the Zoom screen, type in the question, and we will be happy to answer the question and then at the end of the webinar. Meanwhile, we are moving forward. Once again, we are now in the second component, in the second stage of the end-to-end bill automation process. We are at the bill stage. What is happening here? First of all, we receive the bill. This could be happening in different ways. It could be sent by a snail mail. It could be sent by the email, or it could be actually downloaded directly from the supplier portal. That is quite an interesting option that we will talk about a little bit later. After you receive the bill, you need to submit it to the accounting system, to Xero. There are lots of ways to do that. And these ways we need to discuss because actually that's an opportunity to significantly improve the bill automation process. Many organizations are starting with just typing in the bills. And well, that's obvious that it is not a super efficient thing. You spend lots of time to that. There are other options, like recently released email to bill feature that Xero now has. And you can basically send a PDF of the bill to Xero, to a special email address, and they will extract the key information like supplier, amount, but they do not extract all the information, right? So they extract all the key information from PDF files. So it helps a lot, but it is not a solution that would resolve all the problems here. Then there are, of course, OCR tools or data entry tools like Receipt Bank, Data Malina, Auto Entry. They are pretty good in the sense that they are saving lots of time on entering the data, right? So you can have Receipt Bank or Data Malina, send them the image or the PDF file of the invoice, and they will extract all the data from it. There is another option. You can actually copy purchase order to a bill, and that will be an exact replica of what you had in the system as a purchase order, which is brilliant on the one hand, because you have all the data with accounts, with taxes, which is great. On the other hand, you cannot be 100% sure that the actual invoice sent to you by the supplier will be matching this copied invoice, right? Then we have another option. We can actually go to the supplier portal and we can just download the invoice directly to the accounting system. That is what HubDoc is doing. They are very good at this stuff. They have lots and lots of suppliers as their partners, and they just go automatically to the portal of the supplier, download this invoice, and push it to the accounting system. Just brilliant. And there is another option. you can use a feature zero-to-zero connection. So if your supplier is using Xero, then their sales invoice becomes your bill in a very seamless way. So there is another way to organize this submission to Xero part. And finally, we have the third stage in the bill process. There is a validation. So once the bill is in Xero, well, you need to make sure that this is a valid bill, that it is not a duplicate, that it is not coming from some fake supplier, which could be happening from time to time, that everyone is comfortable with the bill, that business is okay to pay it, in other words, right? So how this validation could be happening? There is, of course, the part where you can match bill with a purchase order and just double check that what supplier is willing to charge you for is actually what you have ordered, right? Sometimes there might be discrepancies. Sometimes they are not crucial, not critical. Say, for example, you send a purchase order and then supplier is saying, well, actually the price has changed and you're okay with the difference. Then it's okay. The bill could be different from the purchase order. Or it could be happening that you request 15 chairs, then supplier is sending you an invoice for 10 and saying, well, sorry guys, we have just 10 in stock, we will send you 5 other chairs later. That is the case where bill is not matching the purchase order, but that is perfectly okay to authorize it. But there might be cases when the bill is just wrong, right? It shouldn't be authorized because it is not related to the purchase order. Some organizations make it in a really strict way. They are saying that each bill received by the organization should be matched to a particular purchase order. Or it could be in a little bit different way. Each bill coming from particular suppliers must be linked to a purchase order, otherwise it should not be authorized. This is another option to organize that. Then there is a part with checking the coding of line items in the bill, checking GL codes, checking categories. And this is a very important part to make sure our data is clean. Of course, Xero itself and OCR tools, they are doing a pretty good job in guessing the GL code. And in very significant number of cases, they are correct, but better to double check that. Another part of this validation is to check bank details of the beneficiary of this bill. This could be happening, unfortunately, from time to time when your organization receives a fake bill, right? A complete fraud, right? Where an organization that didn't provide any services, didn't do anything good for your organization, is just sending an invoice saying, yeah, well, that's your invoice, right? So you need to double check whom you're paying to and check bank details of the beneficiary. Finally, you authorize the bill for payment, saying that, yes, this bill needs to be paid. This, by the way, does not necessarily mean that the bill needs to be paid right now. That is a separate process that we're going to talk about a little bit later. Before that, let us briefly go through the implementation options. I have already started talking to them, so we'll go for them pretty quickly. First of all, you could be using some built-in Xero functions, like sending bills using this email to bill function, which is pretty good. You can be using this zero-to-zero connection, which is also brilliant. So there are some options that Xero provides. The brilliant thing here is that, well, it comes with no additional cost. You have a subscription for Xero, you can use these features, that is perfect. But these features do not cover all the possible cases, right? Sometimes you receive an image from the supplier, classical bill, classical invoice, and well, if you send it to email to bill function in Xero, it will not work, it will not help. Then you need to consider, it's worth considering one of the tools like Receipt Bank, Auto Entry, and Data Malina. They are really good in terms of extracting the data and pushing it to Xero. What is a nice thing here is that you can mix and match different tools. So, for example, certain bills could be sent to the Receipt Bank. Certain bills could be just copied from a purchase order. Another type of bills, they could be just downloaded from supplier portals using HubDoc. So you can actually select a number of ways to receive and submit bills to Xero based on the requirements of a particular client or based on the requirements of your organization. Of course, these tools are coming at an additional cost. It is not super significant. I mean, it is comparable to the cost of Xero in most cases, but well, still it is an additional cost. What I would like to emphasize here is that for ApprovalMax, it actually doesn't matter how these bills are created in Xero, how they are entered there. What is important for us is that bills are in awaiting approval status, and then we will pick up them for authorization. This actually brings us to the next topic, how to validate bills, to make sure that they need to be paid, they can be paid. Of course, the first option is to use some built-in Xero functionality or functionality built in to some OCR tools like Receipt Bank and HubDoc. In Xero, as you know, there is an approve button, and this means that there is a possibility to organize some kind of authorization workflow, validation workflow in Xero. So you can basically add heads of the departments into Xero, saying that please log in into Xero each Monday or each Friday or each day, depends, right? Find those bills that that are related to your particular department and authorize them. That is one of the ways to organize it. But well, it basically means that these managers, they need to remember that they need to go to Xero because Xero is not sending notifications. Then these managers will see bills of other departments, which is not always the best thing, right? And it is always a one-step approval. So if head of the marketing department opens Xero and they see that there is a bill related to marketing that they are okay to pay, they just click approve, and that's it, right? You cannot involve another person to authorize this bill. And this brings us to another option. ApprovalMax actually covers this bill validation part, and we're doing it in a multi-step way with different people involved. And it's up to you how to configure these rules. You can be involving 2, 3, 4 people into authorization of each particular bill, depending on amount of the bill, supplier of the bill, and lots of other different parameters. And since ApprovalMax is focused specifically on this validation part in the end-to-end bill automation workflow, we of course have some specific features like delegation of authority, like certain exception management, notifications, and lots of such related features. And here's an illustration of what we have discussed. On the left-hand side, you see those tools that are taking care of digital data capture. Receipt Bank, Data Malina, HubDoc, Auto Entry. They are posting the bill to Xero. And at this point, in Xero, this bill is not hitting the general ledger because it is not yet authorized. And then it comes the part where ApprovalMax picks up this bill from Xero and starts the authorization workflow. Let me emphasize at this point that we don't care about how exactly the bill is created in Xero, to be honest. It could be Data Malina, it could be just manual bill creation, it could be Xero to Xero function, email to bill function, doesn't matter for us. Once the bill is in Xero, in awaiting approval status, ApprovalMax can take care of the bill validation. We have a typical process in mind when we are talking about bill validation. Basically defines what should be checked as a part of the bill validation stage. First of all, it is the check of coding, check of account codes, check of tracking categories to make sure that they are set according to the rules that we have in the organization. Then we have matching and validation part, where we basically check the bill against the purchase order, checking amount that you see on the bill on the purchase order, checking quantity on the bill versus quantity on the purchase order and such. There is another point. You can actually check the prices that you see in the invoice, in the bill, with the prices agreed with the supplier. So sometimes some organizations, typically that are buying lots and lots of stuff from the same suppliers, they have some agreed prices with the suppliers. When the bill is coming in, they can just check the price with agreed price in the catalog of products that they are purchasing and make a decision whether it's a valid bill or maybe for some reason price has been changed, and that is something that we need to negotiate with the supplier. There is another stage that is actually saving lots of time. Certain types of bills, as we see, they should be just automatically approved. So it means that we should not be forcing each bill through the manual approval process. If we see that a particular bill is below a threshold, if it is coming from a supplier that we know really well, then, well, why should we even ask anyone to authorize this bill? It's a typical bill, let us get it automatically approved. Criteria could be quite sophisticated. It could be based on a combination of amount, GL code, supplier, and even some other parameters. And finally, the last step is a manual authorization. Manual in terms of involving people to manually review and authorize the bill. Of course, at this stage, the bill is quite prepared to be authorized because we have already checked tracking categories, we have checked categories, we have checked GL codes, we have checked prices, and this bill was not automatically approved because it is kind of an exceptional bill, right? For a significant amount, maybe coming from a new supplier, and that's where a manual authorization needs to be required. That's, by the way, how ApprovalMax looks and how the authorization workflow looks like in ApprovalMax. It could be multiple steps. It could be involving different people based on different criteria, based on tracking categories, based on GL codes, and such. And it comes from pulling the bill from Xero to the final bill authorization in Xero. So as you see, it might sound quite a complicated topic, this validations and authorizations, but actually they can be pretty easily defined in the solution itself. And now let me share with you another piece of the insight that we have from our customer survey. We have asked basically which criteria is used to route bills, right? Last time we were looking at a purchase order authorization best practices, and now we're looking at bill authorization. The most popular way to organize the workflow is to use amount of the bill, obviously, right? Then we have GL code, account in other words, then supplier, and then using tracking category. And as you see, pretty much the same way as in purchase order workflow, in the bill workflow, we have lots of organizations that are using more than one criteria, not just amount, not just GL code, but a combination of them. And well, we can say that it is just a typical way to organize the workflow implemented by lots and lots of organizations. Well, we are now moving to the last part of end-to-end bill automation, and this is payments part. Let me encourage you once again to ask questions if there are any. You're very welcome to click on the Q&A button, ask the questions there, and we'll be happy to answer all the questions a little bit later. Before that, let's talk about the payments part, and that would be, as I mentioned, the last part in the end-to-end bill automation. What are the 3 steps here? First of all, we need to select those bills that we need to pay now or prepare, in other words, a batch payment, right? How the bills could be selected? Obviously based on the due date. So if this bill needs to be paid tomorrow, right, it is for sure a trigger for us to at least consider this bill for payment. I'm not saying that we will need to pay it today or tomorrow, right? It depends, but at least it needs to be considered. So due date is a criteria to select bills that needs to be paid in a particular batch. Then we have supplier criteria, because different suppliers could have different agreements, different payment terms, and it is worth bringing supplier as a criteria for bill selection here. And currency. It makes perfect sense, and well, it's a best practice, and sometimes it's the only way to do it, to select bills in a particular currency before, and then pay them in a particular batch. Then we have the second step, we have authorization to release the payment. As it typically works, as we see, that once the bills, a particular set of bills has been selected to be paid, they are not paid right away. We need to have someone's authorization for this batch to be paid. It could be CFO, sometimes could be Chief Executive Officer, VP Finance. It depends on the organizational structure and how it works, but there should be some kind of an authorization. Could be done in different ways. Could be an ad hoc authorization, which is good enough, but better to have a little bit more formal process. It could be an email-based authorization, at least, or even better to have a formal authorization with some rules and with some deadlines and with a clear audit log of who has authorized this batch payment and when. Finally, there is a payment itself, right? Processing of the payment. We need to somehow communicate to the solution that is doing the payment that these bills, they need to be paid to the following suppliers, etc. This could be done in a manual way. You can just upload a file in a special format to your bank and do that, or you could be using some automated solutions. Let's actually take a look at implementation options. First of all, you could be using some features that Xero provides for payment support. And Xero has a personalized feature of batch payments, right? So you can select a number of bills and create batch payment. And then export this batch payment into a file that then later on will be uploaded to the bank, right? It is quite helpful solution. It is a manual process still because you need to download the file, you need to upload the file, but for sure it is better than nothing, right? Then there is a number of external payment solutions that are trying to cover the whole process end to end. From authorization of a batch payment to payment itself, which is very important. But there are lots of potential issues here, to be honest. Many tools are country specific, right? So there is one nice tool that is, for example, only available in the US, right? It is very good, it is very powerful, but not available in Australia, right? There are some tools that are very good, but quite expensive. So that is, of course, a subject for a completely separate webinar of how different tools are, how these tools are different, what are the benefits, advantages, and disadvantages of these tools. So at this webinar, since especially we are starting to run out of time, let me mention that there are a number of tools, and they are quite different in terms of in which country they are available, what are the fees, and how they integrate with Xero. And the last option that you can use that could be quite helpful is using ApprovalMax for batch payment authorization. We have a number of clients that are using ApprovalMax in exactly this way. They configure a workflow that is not a bill approval workflow, but that is exactly a batch payment approval workflow. They upload a number of already authorized bills there, and then they ask CFO, sometimes Chief Executive Officer, to authorize this batch payment. Once it is authorized, anyway, it's a manual process. Unfortunately, we currently do not have it in a way that it would be creating a batch payment in Xero. Although, to be honest, that is something that we are currently thinking about. And the last slide I would like to share with you. We were talking about different stages in the end-to-end bill automation process, and it was to some extent a theoretical discussion. So I was not bringing lots of practical examples of how exactly this could be organized. But we do have a very nice webinar with Lucent Advisory, and it is available on our YouTube channel. You're very welcome to take a look at this webinar, because at this webinar, instead of lots of theoretical slides, you will hear a very specific case discussion of how this end-to-end bill automation could be organized using Xero, using ApprovalMax. So yeah, as I mentioned, you're very welcome to go to our YouTube channel and look for this webinar. Before we switch to the Q&A session, let me make one step back and let us once again take a look at these payment options, and let us take a poll. We would be really, really interested to learn a little bit more about how you are actually handling payments. So let me hand over to Helmut for this second poll that we have prepared for you.
Thank you very much, Konstantin. And let me launch the poll. Here it is. So it is about how you are processing supplier payments, what payment solution you are actually using. Are you using an online banking or a specific application provided by your bank, or a connected app like Bill.com or TransferWise, Revolut, or any other ones? Please let us know what is the most popular way for processing payments, how you are doing it today. And of course, we will share the results with you. So please let us know how you're processing supplier payments. Good, votes are coming in. Let's give it a little bit more time, everybody, to make his vote. Okay, good. Let me share the results. So here we go. The number one payment solution is online banking. So I assume that just the payment information are exported from the accounting software and uploaded to the online banking application, followed by a dedicated application by the bank, hopefully connected to the accounting solution. If not, then it maybe would be time to look for something different. And we have some attendees who are using a different payment solution. Thank you very much for taking part in the vote. I guess I give it back to Maria now.
Thank you, Konstantin. Thank you, Helmut. I guess we are good to go with our Q&A. And we have a couple of questions in the Q&A box. And also, there's some in the chat. So I guess, Helmut, that's actually back to you. So how do we split that?
Yeah, thank you, Maria. Konstantin, the first question I would like to ask you is, you have provided a lot of insight in different options, how to organize an authorization workflow, and how to organize not only technical wise, but also from the organizational standpoint, how to organize the flow. The question actually is, do you see any difference how approval workflows are used in different industries or based on the type of an organization? So what the customer survey did discover?
Well, that's actually a very good question. So ApprovalMax is actually used across all the different industries. And I cannot say that we have one favorite industry. We have lots of clients from non-for-profits area, because these organizations, they are oftentimes very focused on internal controls, and they want to be sure that when an external audit comes, they have a very clear, structured, very well structured, very clear authorization process for bills, and they oftentimes are implementing exactly this purchase order workflow, just to make sure that they are matching bills to purchase orders and there are no questions in regards to who has initiated the purchase and who has authorized the purchase. So NFP is quite a popular type of organizations for us. Also, I see that there are lots of organizations that are working in a multi-entity format, meaning that they have multiple offices, multiple Xero files, multiple locations, and for these organizations, ApprovalMax is quite helpful because it basically allows to have the same type of the workflow across multiple entities. So we have clients from the energy sector that have dozens and dozens of entities, right? Dozens and dozens of Xero files, and of course they don't want to have completely different set of rules of who is purchasing what and who is authorizing what across all these entities. They are setting up ApprovalMax. They are setting quite basic workflows, to be honest. So they're not making it a 15-step authorization process. They're doing it in a pretty simple way. When the bill is coming in, it is going through the department approval first, where it is routed to different people based on the tracking category. Then it is going for a senior management approval based on the amount of the bill or amount of the purchase order, and that's it, right? But since this process is universal across all the entities, and thanks to automated notifications, it is saving lots and lots of time to all the people involved, both accounting team and approvers who are making authorizations, right? So yeah, I hope this gives you some better insights into how this is used across the different types of organizations.
Yeah, thank you very much, Konstantin. And we got quite a few other questions. Let me just try to pick some of those. And before doing so, let me ensure that we will reply to all your questions, even if we don't answer them in today's webinar. Especially, please allow us to skip some feature-related or simple feature-related questions. We will take care on those questions over email, if that's okay for you. Konstantin, one very interesting question asked by Queenie is, once a bill has been created and an email notification is sent to the approver to approve the bill, can the notification be sent to the PO requester to match the bill before the bill approver is being notified to approve the bill? So essentially, if the process could be structured this way, that the bill approver does not match the PO, but the PO requester will verify before the bill approver approves the bill.
Well, that is a very good question. And well, it opens up a very interesting topic of bill to PO matching. So yeah, currently it works the way that bill is matched to the purchase order, typically by approver of the bill, right? And once the bill is actually matched to the purchase order, then ApprovalMax would suggest to add a requester of the purchase order as another approver, right? And well, it is done for an obvious reason, because the person who has raised the purchase order typically should be also confirming the delivery of goods or delivery of services. That's why it makes sense to involve purchase order requester as bill approver. Matching could be done by the purchase order requester, but unless we match a bill to the purchase order, we actually don't know if the bill is related to the purchase order. So that's why currently notifications do not work this way. But let me mention one very interesting thing that we're currently working on. We are working on a solution for automated bill to PO matching. That would be a very helpful thing in this era, because it would just check amounts, it would check quantities and everything on the bill, find a related purchase order according to some smart criteria and match it. And in this case, you're actually saving lots of time on someone manually matching a bill as a part of the bill approval process. So yeah, that is something that will be coming in the product. So currently, yeah, matching should be done by an approver as a part of the bill review and approval process. Thanks for asking. That's a really interesting question.
Yeah, thank you for the detailed answer, Konstantin. And Manix is asking if an approver, no, not an approver, if a requester for a bill approval will be notified once a bill is approved or rejected.
Yes, that is possible. Actually, when you are configuring a bill review and approval process, in the very first step, you select a person who will be notified about all the approvals, rejections, comments, and such. And the best practice here is to select not a particular person, actually, not an email like konstantin@approvalmax.com, but to select a generic email like finance@approvalmax.com or invoices or AP@approvalmax.com, doesn't matter, and then have some forwarding rules. So this is typically a generic email that is then sent to all the members of the accounting team. And yeah, they will be notified about approvals, rejections, comments, and they will be able to react to this rejection of the bill, make changes, because actually the reason for the rejection will be also in the email. So they will be able to make some changes, resubmit the bill for approval, and then it will go through the approval workflow once again. Approvals will be notified once again. They will see that the bill has been changed and resubmitted for approval. And well, that will be up to them whether to agree to these changes and authorize the bill, or once again say, well, something is wrong with the bill, we don't want to pay it. So yeah, back to the question, yes, notifications to the bill initiators are possible.
Thanks for the answer, Konstantin. So actually, it illustrates that ApprovalMax has a lot of features which can help actually to build a pretty flexible workflow and adopt the solution and the technical implementation of the workflow with really different business scenarios, and configure ApprovalMax and the overall interaction with other apps in the workflow based on the needs of different businesses. So the next question actually from Prashant is asking if ApprovalMax is recommending any digital automation software like HubDoc, ReceiptBank, or any other app which ApprovalMax integrates seamless?
Well, that is also a very good question. So, well, we have lots of clients that are using these solutions that you have mentioned, like ReceiptBank and some other tools like Data Malina, Auto Entry, and HubDoc. And we are not trying to compare these tools. Like, we don't compare ReceiptBank with Data Malina with Auto Entry, right? This requires a completely separate research. It's not our area of expertise, to be honest, right? What we do know that different clients are using combinations of these tools. So sometimes it could be a ReceiptBank plus HubDoc, because ReceiptBank will be taking care of extracting data from images, while HubDoc will be downloading data from supplier portals. At the same time, the same client could be using Xero-to-Xero functions, specifically with those suppliers that are also on Xero and can be sending sales invoices in a digital form right away. That is also a good option. So what can I say is that it is important to take a look at all these different types of solutions. So ReceiptBank, Data Malina, and Auto Entry, they are generally falling into one category that we can call OCR/data extraction tools. Then there is a HubDoc solution that is a little bit different in a sense that they are downloading supplier invoices from some portals of suppliers. There are actually other tools in the market that are also doing that, if you are interested, right? ApprovalMax is not doing that. We work seamlessly with all those solutions that can do one simple thing. They just need to push bills into Xero in awaiting approval status, or at least in a draft status, and then someone will need to submit those bills for approval. If some tool that you have in mind, it can push the bill only as approved one to Xero, then we have a problem, because we do not pull those bills that are already approved. When ApprovalMax is asking Xero if there is something new for us to take care of, and Xero is saying, yeah, we have 3 bills, they're all approved, then, well, we don't even pick them up, because we consider that our job is done, right? Approval has been done for this bill, we don't pick them up. So yeah, back to the question, I'd suggest to consider different types of tools, like OCR tools, tools that are pulling supplier invoices from portals, built-in Xero tools like email to bill, like Xero-to-Xero, and some other ways to get bills, like copy purchase order to a bill, and similar ways. Just to reiterate, we are not trying to make a detailed comparison of different OCR tools. Like, we don't compare ReceiptBank, Auto Entry, and Data Malina. They have their own advantages and disadvantages. By the way, I would like to refer you to the cash flow playbook that Maria has mentioned in the very beginning. Xero is doing such comparison, and we prefer to refer to this Xero cash flow playbook, where they have made certain research and just filled in a table with checkboxes like these guys, they have this feature, and other guys, they have another feature. You're very welcome to take a look at this cash flow playbook. I think it could be quite helpful in this decision-making process. Thanks a lot for asking.
Yeah, thank you very much, Konstantin. And so while you are mentioning this playbook, let me actually put you a link in the Zoom chat where you can look up this playbook. It refers actually to the UK side of Xero, but it should be available under all local sites. So if you replace UK in the link with AU, or just make a search on Google, you will find the available playbooks. And so the second one on this page, which I have put the link in, is the cash flow playbook. Yeah, so we are actually running a little bit out of time. So let me just pick one last question and ensure that we will follow up on all remaining questions over email. And so, yes, so the question actually is from Fiona, who is asking about search on POs, or so can you actually search on POs only, or can you also search by supplier? Currently, the user needs to scroll through a list of items. So what are the options? Can you give us some idea, Konstantin?
Well, that is also a very good option. So to be honest, we have received inquiries for search first quite some time ago, and it took us quite some time to implement the search feature. But now the good news, it is available as a part of the beta program. So it is available for those organizations that have asked us to enable it for. So we'll be very happy to enable this search feature for you. And it will be possible to search bills, purchase orders by supplier, reference, GL codes, tracking categories, and some other fields. So that's a very useful feature. We'll be happy to enable this feature for you. And of course, there is another feature that you are very welcome to use. We have reports functionality that is available for administrators and auditors. And you can basically create different types of filters, like ApprovalMax, please show me those purchase orders that have been approved but are not yet fully billed, for example. Or please, ApprovalMax, show me those bills that have been submitted for approval that are not yet approved, and please let me know who we are waiting for, right? So there is quite a useful column to see who are those approvers who didn't make a decision yet, although they are supposed to do so. So yeah, two options on a high level: search that we'll be happy to enable for you, and reports that are already available in the product. In the navigation bar, just click reports and yeah, configure the report that you would like to use. Yeah, thanks a lot for asking this question.
Thank you very much, Konstantin. Before I hand back to Maria to conclude today's session, let me give you a hint. So we will be attending Xero's roadshow in Australia, which is taking place in February. So I put you a link in the Zoom chat where you can find additional informations about the exhibitors on the roadshow, and obviously also which cities ApprovalMax will be on the show. So if you want to talk about the product or any other question you may have, please request an appointment. Make sure that you come to the roadshow, and I will be there with a stand in the exhibition area and would love to meet you and talking to you. Thank you very much. I say goodbye and hand back to Maria.
Thank you very much, Helmut, and thank you very much, Konstantin, for a very insightful technology walkthrough. And so we are wrapping up, and we hope to have a next webinar coming around March. So we will keep you updated, and thanks again for staying along with us and for such an engaged discussion and so many questions. So that's been great and really exciting for us. So thank you very much again. Okay.
Good. Then thank you, everyone, and we wish you a lovely evening and hopefully talking to you soon again. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Thanks a lot for joining.